in the Perek Chelek, it says that Eliyahu tells Rabbi Yehuda that Mashiach will not come before Yev Achrein, and that is the year 4250. This is 85 Avlis. And the Rashi says straightforwardly, until this time, as the Gemara says, is Lo Yistakile, don't wait for him. He says, Leite out the tzape, or to actually quote it, Leite tzape loy, Devad Eliyahu Kedim Azman Azah, he will definitely not come before this time. But afterwards, Chaka Lo Shiyavi, he's wait for Shiyavi, he will come, and therefore you could wait. And then Chaka Lo, could wait for him. So the simple question is, again, the Anshe Knesset Gedela were much before this time. They were Masakin Atfila that says we await Mashiach every day and the whole day, really. So what's that about? Secondly, we know that the Beis HaMikdash, the second Beis HaMikdash was destroyed. There's three possible dates, all within 3 years. Either it is 3,828, 29, or 30. 68, 69, or 70 in the Gregorian calendar. So it's also before this time where it says Yev Achrein, this time not by almost 800 years, more like 400 years, 420 years. Interesting, parenthetically, 420 years was the time that the duration of the second Beis HaMikdash stood for 420 years. It's not an interesting thing. So, and we know there's Gemaras, and then I'm not actually quoting inside, but we know that it says that Mashiach, the time when the Beis HaMikdash was destroyed, already Mashiach Shel Yisrael was born. The Rebbe quotes this, and then actually in Vikuch HaRamban, they brought this up as well. But then the Ramban says, "In the midim al-godesh," remember correctly, which means halachically it's not really a question. Who knows what it means? And technically, really, this could apply here. But on the other hand, the Barbanel makes it a little more clear, and also the Maharal. They categorized, really to answer this question, and really to organize how this would work. They divide into 3 different times. There's 3 different kitzim, really. Kates, 3 different kitzim. There's many more, but 3 general ones that were established from the beginning of time when Hashem created the world. The first one is, as the Barbanel says it, Zman Yimona Lavoi, time that he's withheld, Mashiach is withheld to come. This is a certain period amount of time. Another period of time in between is a time that Mashiach could come. Zman Sharis Lavoi. Mashiach could come at this time. Then there's a final period, the third case, and that is Zman Chiyuvei Boi. This is when Mashiach must come. If you look at the Gemara over here, at the bottom of the page and other places, it talks about again what does Tshuva do, what does Tefillah do, what is in other words, what's Masena V'Desenu, what do we accomplish? And the answer is, l'chayr, you could say, that in this middle period, even though Mashiach doesn't have to come, right, we're able to bring Mashiach. And this also explains different Gemaras, where there's a machlekes if Mashiach's going to come and darsh kol zakai kol chayev. So again, when you have these 3 different Vidar, different kids, lots of stuff can make sense. So we would say without machlekes, we're talking about 2 different zmanim. A zman where kulei zakai could be in a time, even zman yimanalov, a time where Mashiach won't come. Why? Because through us doing avodah, everything's very good kids are here, but basically through us going l'fnei mishur sadin and doing avodah, we're able to make Mashiach come in the first period of time. Which is why the Gemara on this same daf, it's the same Amud, Tzadik Zayin Amud Beis, says that, in other words, it says in the pasuk. Go to the pasuk later. But anyways, the pasuk says, "We are waiting, and Hashem is waiting." Mima keves, who's holding Mashiach? Everybody wants Mashiach to come, so what's holding back? Midas adin ma keves. Midas adin, which means if you look at it the way that we understand the way the things work, that gevura is not necessarily, or midas adin is not a bad thing. It just means that is what Hashem was Mashar in the beginning, and that's going to be this particular way. It's not limited to that way. And in other words, if we go l'fnei mishur sadin, Mashiach will come at that time. Fine. So maybe these 3 could work. We know from all the Sikhs of the Rebbe, Maimorim, l'chayra, this doesn't work. What does it mean that Mashiach can't come at a certain time? So now, with regards to saying Rachel Avatala, you might say that if we daven really hard, or whatever we daven, actually it says Kishu Askal Kivinu Kalayim. What's the connection? Why should Tzemach David? Why should Hashem bring Mashiach? Because we're waiting all day. So what? You could wait for something. You could wait to win $1 million. Doesn't mean you're going to get $1 million. That's not how it really works. This holding of tefillah, but straightforward, that's not how it works. So the part is, as the Chidah explains, that why is Mashiach going to come? Because we're waiting for him. This is exactly what brings Mashiach. And as another Rebbe says, you learn about Mashiach, you want Mashiach, you demand Mashiach. It's going to make him come, because that's how this works. So that could work. That could be fine. But at the end of the day, how could it be the Mashiach can't come at a certain time? According to what Rashi is saying, what Rashi says is really the problem over here, because the Gemara says don't wait for him. So again, why? Because he's not supposed to come at that time. Don't expect it. In other words, but Rashi says he can't come before this time. What exactly does that mean? And also, why is that a problem? It's a problem because we know that the Rambam divides the Jewish faith, Yiddishkeit, in the three Yud Gimel Ikrim, and he says that the Ikar Yud Beis is this. I'll read it inside just to get the exact lotion. Yisoid Hashnei Moser Yemais HaMashiach Hu Lahamin Ulam Sheyovei Ve'in Leimer Shenis Achar Yemis Ma'ameh Achakalei. He says that this is to make it to, first of all, to believe, like all the other ones. All the other ones was, as some people say in davening, Ani Mamin, and there's 13 of them. They have the all in common, of course. This is Emunah. But then he says, that's this line. Now, obviously, the other ones, for example, I believe there's one Eibishter. First there is a Eibishter, there's one Eibishter. Tires Menasharim, all these things, is seemingly either you believe it or you don't believe it. There could be wiggle room, and he'll tell you exactly how not to be over on those things. But it's not necessarily a waiting for something. So you could say when it comes to Mashiach, since it's something interesting, it's an event really, it's something that hasn't happened yet. You could say that's what he says. You have to wait for it as well. It's not just saying the Mashiach, you have to believe Mashiach. That seemingly is enough already to say Mashiach is integral to Yiddishkeit. That's already something that some people might not believe in, and therefore you would have to say this is part of the Yiddishkeit. Yeah, believe Mashiach. But he says to wait for him as well. And more, they've continued the Rambam. Actually, this is other questions that could come, and we're not going to focus on this based on what the Gemara says, what the Rambam says over here. You shouldn't try to interpret the psukim to see when he's going to come. Amr Chachamim Tipuach Daitan Shel Machashvi Kitzin. As Gemara says on this Amud as well. It's a very popular Amud. It says literally what it means is blast the bones of those who make Kitzin for Mashiach's going to come. So with the whole thing where we have these three different categories, we could try to make sense of things. But first, the Gemara says not to do that. And even if we try to make it in the sense that even if we try to explain it in a way that tells us how to wait for him, still, how can it be that there's going to be any time that Mashiach is not going to come? And over here, we know that we give it a date. It says 4,250. Now, this is the Gemara earlier on. Some people ask a question. The Gemara earlier on says there's two. They could divide the world also in three different categories, but by 2,000 years. So there's 2,000 years Tayu, 2,000 years Tayyar, 2,000 years of Mashiach. But here, according to the state, 4,250. It's missing 250 years. So you could say it's an approximation, it's an estimate, it's not exact. Fine. But at the end of the day, this is well after Matan Torah. This is after we got Torah Mitzvahs, and we know, like the Rambam says, in the end of Mishnah Torah, he says, "V'kol mishein ma'amin boy, by mishein mechak leviyosei." Again, I want to emphasize that he says ma'amin boy and mechak leviyosei. Again, this is integral to Mashiach as well, not just to believe, but to await. Lo yibishar nevim bevadu koifer elavatara of Moshe Rabbeinu. Shayatera ido Allah v'shem v'shav v'shem alekecha shavus v'reichamecha v'shem kivetzcha miyedacha kosal v'psukim ve'ila advarim and farashim batera heim koelim kol advarim shem al di'anavim. And then he brings the psukim from the Torah. So over here we see that it's integral Torah mitzvahs. Torah mitzvahs were given 2448. Again, this is almost 2,000 years before. From Torah. So what exactly does this mean? In a way, I'm not so. There's different answers. Other answers that were given. In other words, all of the Rashi's, like I said, Rashi is the real problem. He says he will not come. So I don't know if this is Ice Garden, I don't know, but this is something I thought of. Rashi really is teaching, as we know, first of all, the rules of Rashi and the Gemara are not the same rules as Rashi on the Chumash. Rebbe makes that clear. But Rashi, at the end of the day, does come to explain ad hachaloi tistakile and istakile. Not about Yovel Achar. I mean, Yovel Achar he explained, but he doesn't say he's not going to come until he doesn't say that he's not going to come then. He says he's not going to come when it says ad hachaloi tistakile. Ad Yovel Acharin loy titzapeloi devade leyovi koidim azman hazeh. So what it really means, you could say, it doesn't mean the Mashiach can't come. It's in connection to what he says before then. Loy titzape. Do not await. Now, the difference you could find is that actually in the Gemara, and as we found in the Rambam, Gimel Likrim, and the Rambam Mishnah Torah, which is La'alacha, he says the Lashon Chake. Possibly, you can make a chiluk between Chake and Tetzap. Obviously, Tzipiyah and Tekiah are not the same thing. One of them is to await for Mashiach. Why? Because if you believe in him, he must come. It has to be a reality for you. It has to be something realistic, as he says in the Rambam says in Yud Gimel Ikram. But Tzipiyah is something else. Tzipiyah means it's an expectation. This is something that you are expecting. You deserve it. This is Mashiach's supposed to come, and I'm waiting for him, and this is what brings him. So I'm expecting him. Just like if I deserve something, you work for someone, he's supposed to pay you. He doesn't pay you. You expect him to pay you, and you wait for him to pay you. Not in the same way you're waiting to win a lottery. It's a different type of expectation. And so to that, Rashi says, do not expect him in that way, because he's not going to come. It sounds a bit difficult. It's a bit daichik to really say it that way, but somewhat it gives us some context. It's within this context of expectation. He will not come at that time, because until this date he won't come. And really, this also answers what we asked before. This also explains Zman Sharis Lavoi, because Zman Sharis Lavoi could be in those years up until then as well. Only in the last 2,000 years, which is really the Zman that we said, Mashiach, that is when he definitely has to come. And that time you have to expect him. And also the Psukim, which Gemara quotes, all have the lashon of, for example, if you look in Chavakok, it says, as Gemara quotes. Also in Svani it says, "L'chu chakuli." No, Hashem. So Hashem says, "Wait for me." And also in Yeshaya it says, "L'cheni chaka Hashem l'chanchem." So I didn't go through all the psukim. I don't know, but l'chayra again, there's a recurring theme of tekiah, which is awaiting but not a way of expectation. Interesting thing is that Gemara and Shabbos. So just to find some sort of support to what I'm trying to say, and Daf Lamed Aleph Amud Aleph, the Gemara over there says as follows: we ask him a time when a person comes to the Shemaim. We ask him, did he deal in business faithfully? Did he set times for Torah? Did you have children? Fourth thing says, did you await? But here it doesn't say you could say, because all these things he says of here, you could say when he says if it's one of the fundamentals of Yiddishkeit, why is he singling out these 5 things? I'm not sure exactly why these 5 things. I'm sure they have stuff in common. But these things are not things that would be expected. It wouldn't be things that necessarily you would be obligated to do. Something more. Because again, it's not about stealing or anything. But Emunah means more than just what is expected of you, more than what you're demanded to do.
Why those 5 are all for you?
In a way, they're not actually.
Which one of them is not a shiur?
First one is Emunah, is that you can't steal. You can't trick someone, but to do it in good faith, you could find ways where it's allowed. But you could say, for example, that you're allowed to go and open up. Somebody has any type of cleaners, a pizza shop. You could open up a pizza shop next to him. Is that good faith? I don't think so. But it's you're allowed.
You're not allowed to.
You.
There's a lot of rules to the game.
But those rules, none of those are not.
You have to do
Ruvu, yes, that's true. You could say that it's.
For sure, it's a
you could do a paragraph of Shachris and Arfis. It's asking more than that. Tzvisli Shua Rashi says Lahamin Divrei Neviim, or it says Tzvisli Shua the Divrei Neviim. I don't have it up here.
Because the Quran is the ultimate Yeshua. A little like what you're saying. It's what it's right. So the way you're teaching that since the time has come, therefore you have to wait. Now it's time.
Right.
Is, and now he has to come.
Right, in that time. So I wanted to point out because interesting. The Rebbe says on that one over there is if you look in Chedek Chav Beis in Kodesh Sichos, page 76 or 62, he says look in Shabbos where this again the Rebbe is going on the word Tzipiyah. The Rebbe is saying that it has to be. You look inside, but anyways, the Rebbe says look in Shabbos Samad Aleph Tzipiyah Lisho Tzarchin Pirish Rashi Sham. The Rashi over there has been interesting. And again, this also shows that the Rashi over here. So L'chayr you could say there's 2 different times with good questions about those 5 things. I'll have to look it up. But L'chayr it's something different. There's a shift in these things, and that basically Mamish, what that means is that at this time, where the Rebbe says Kol Kitzin, and that time where there's definitely after all the opinions, even in the Gemara's case, as the Rebbe said, there's a different form. It's not just I believe in him. It's not just something that I wait for, but it's something that I expect, and therefore it changes the way that I should live my life. So maybe Moshiach come right now.
Yeah.